All right. Well, I think we're sharing. So let's see if this is going. So welcome to the Stairway Live. This is the first level, the first day of trying to look at DAX and Power BI live and try to go through the Stairway series. So my name is Steve Jones. I'm an advocate for Redgate Software, and this is an experiment in learning and trying to learn as a group with multiple people, though there's actually nobody here right now for this first level. So hopefully we will get some more interaction in the future. But the goal here is really that we wanted to go through this this Stairway series, which is the Stairway to DAX and Power BI. And if I pop over here, I can see the entire Stairway at the bottom. This was written by Bill Pearson a number of years ago, where he started with PowerPivot, and he then wanted to move forward into Power BI. So we're going to really do this with Power BI, even though the first level it says starting with PowerPivot and DAX. The goal here is for me to learn some DAX and you to learn along with me, because it's an expression language that is becoming very popular. It powers the various calculations that we'll use in Power BI, which is another application from Microsoft for data analysis, and it's becoming very, very, very popular. It's a tremendous visualization tool that makes it easy to create and share visuals with other people in an interactive fashion. So with that, let's get started in this first level. Now, there were a few things I wanted to do to get started in here. As I read through this Stairway, just to glance at it before we started, I noticed that we do need SQL Server running. This is SQL Server 2008 R2, though I'm actually going to do this on SQL Server 2017. It says install PowerPivot analysis services and samples. I actually do not have analysis services installed, so that's going to be homework item number 1. Actually, let me put that in the chat, so I'll save it. So, SQL Server and analysis services. That's the first thing that needs to be done. If you haven't ever done that, there's plenty of tutorials out there. There's things on SQL Server Central. I'll add some resource links to help you get started, and I'll actually probably do a short video and article on installing analysis services on top of SQL Server, since many of you are probably in the same situation I am, where we have SQL Server installed, but often not analysis services. I don't have PowerPivot, or I'm not going to use PowerPivot. I do have it installed in Excel. This talks about it as an add-on. Instead, what we're going to do is adapt everything that happens here to Power BI. So Power BI Desktop is what I'm going to use, and let me bring that over here. Power BI Desktop is a tool from Microsoft that you can download. And if I were to, let's pop over here and say Power BI Desktop, what we'll find is powerbi.microsoft.com. There's a /language/desktop version. You can download this and install it. I didn't think anybody wanted to actually watch me install this, so I've done this ahead of time, and I've got it running. And then the last thing is we need the AdventureWorks Data Warehouse version. So back up here, after analysis service and SQL Server, there's AdventureWorks SQL Server Data Warehouse. Now, SQL Server sample database. This should get you to the GitHub account. Let's move this over to Microsoft SQL Server samples. And if you look at the repository, you'll see there's a number of these. If I go to the samples overview on GitHub and go to samples, what I should find is databases, right? Yes, this is what I want. And so AdventureWorks, and then there's a data warehouse install script here. But if you go through this, you can see how to download and get AdventureWorks installed. I do have that actually installed here, AdventureWorks Data Warehouse. And if I were to look at something like, let's look at date, you'll see I've got some of the data that comes along with the data warehouse version there as well. So with that, that's kind of the basics of getting started here, kind of the homework items that we need to do: analysis services, SQL Server, and AdventureWorks. And so let's get started. So the first thing this has you do is actually go to PowerPivot in Excel, with the idea that what we're going to do is connect to AdventureWorks 2000 or AdventureWorks Data Warehouse, and then what we're going to do is import a number of tables. Power BI, that's slightly differently. Now, I've lightly played with Power BI desktop. I haven't done a lot of work there, but I've done some. So I know that when I go to Power BI desktop, there's a get data menu item, and I can pick SQL Server here. And so in this case, my local server is Plato, and I have various instances on there. So this is what I'll put down. I'm just going to say OK here. I could put the database, but I might mistype it and never want to do that. So when I do that, you'll see that I get the navigator that shows me all the databases, which looks surprisingly like what I see over here inside of Management Studio. It's kind of an object explorer. So we'll pick the data warehouse item, and then there's a number of database tables to import. And let's go back and check the list. So account, currency, customer, date, geography. Account, currency, customer, date, geography. Product, promotion, sales reason. Product, promotion, sales reason. Sales territory. Fact internet sales is here. In fact, internet sales reason. So these are the tables with all the transactions, these fact tables in a warehouse, and the dimensional tables are just dim for short. They start with dim. So let's load those up and just see what happens there. And while that's happening, I'm going to type homework 2 here. Three is Power BI. So what's happening here is the data and the tables are actually loading into the model in Power BI desktop. Now, Power BI compresses and efficiently stores everything. So we've got the data then loaded in here. And if I go over here on the side and look at fields, you'll see them all listed. On the left side, if I were to go to the middle item, the data tab, I actually see the data itself. Excuse me, slight cough there. So here's the account dimension here. If I were to the date dimension, we'd see that date dimension that I saw before. Same thing for sales territory, fact sales, etc. So I can see all of the data actually listed here that I might want to use. So we've selected those and imported those. That's what's come in. We see all the data. So let's get started with DAX. So the first thing that Bill wants us to do is actually add a column to our model. The model is kind of the database or the amount of data items and structures we have. So what we actually want to do is try some experiments in DAX to just get used to following some of these instructions. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to look at this dim product table, and we want to add a column. Now in Power BI Desktop, if I do dim product, you'll notice at the top, I don't have add a column, but I do have new column up here. So let's click new column. Power BI Desktop will then add a column to the model, but I have to give it some sort of formula. So you see here at the top, I've got this column equals now. So this is where I would actually put the column in. So in this case, I have a formula that Bill wants me to use where I take the product alternate key, put a dash, and then the English product name. So if I were to actually start typing here, product alternate key, you'll notice that it finds that in the same table, dim product with not a dot as in SQL Server, but a bracket, product alternate key. So I can hit tab, and then I can do this standard Excel kind of notation for concatenation with the and symbol. And then we want the English product name, which is also in there, right? Product alternate key and English product name. So I don't have to type those. Now, it's going to say column 1 if I do this. If I were to hit enter or click this, what we'll actually see is the new column added over here on the right side, and it says column. And you can see it's got a letter, number, dash, name combination. If I were to scroll back over here, we see the English product name is that name, and the product alternate key is that alphanumeric dash number combination. So I've created this new column over here. Now, if I pick this, I could actually change this to something else, which is what I believe Bill wants us to do. We want to change the name to something else. We'll come back and look at this in a moment, but now he's left it as calculated column 1, so let's leave it there. We'll call it the same thing so we know, calculated column 1. And we'll save that. And then you'll see it adjust the model. And if I were to go back to my visualization area and look at dim product, we would see that calculated column 1 is actually in here. Calculated column 1 is right here now. So now it looks like just like another column in the table that I can use. Now, one of the things that Bill mentions in here is that we have a number of operators we can use. So the AND operator was used to concatenate two columns together in this case. There are arithmetic operations, the standard ones that we expect and use in most programming languages. We also have, there's grouping, parentheses which we want. There's comparisons, which are the standard ones. Notice the not equal is the less than, greater than together, not the exclamation point equal sign. Concatenation, and then the logical operators. These are all very familiar to most programmers. They're the same types of operators that we would use in most programming languages for these actual operations. PowerShell being the exception, where PowerShell is kind of annoying. All right, so now we go into this area where we start to look at a little more DAX. So DAX could be either for calculated columns or measures. And so let's talk about each one of these. Now we created that calculated column with, in our case, the new column in Power BI. So that created a new column that we could use just like a calculated column in SQL Server. I've now got this column that I can actually use. A measure, though, is something else. So it must already exist, created from something that already exists. So I could do a column. So let's try that. So I could do a column with something that doesn't exist. So let's try doing that. In product, if I said new column, and I said new column equals, let's just say Steve. Let's just see what happens. There might be a reason we put a scalar value in there. You see I now have a column that says Steve everywhere, which is kind of cool because I think if I were to pick a visualization, like let's pick a table here, and then let's drag over the column. Where's column? Over here. What would we see? We see Steve, which is what we expect. If I put the product thing over here, we see Steve with all these products. So DAX calculated columns are similar to what we expect in many other columns that exist. So I assume with this column, if I right click it, I could delete it. I could delete this, right? But let's try something else. So what if I said this is equal to 5 times 5? What does that give me? Well, arithmetically, that makes sense, is what we expect there. What if I said, let's say A and B? I probably need to quote these. What would A and B give me in the logical operation? It doesn't find that. Maybe it's quotes, maybe it's double quotes. So single quotes don't work. That's interesting. So single quotes working in T-SQL don't work here. So A and B don't really work. But if I said 1 and 0, so logical operations here, I get false, but 1 and, well, I guess I could just do 1. I don't need quotes there, right? 1 and 1 should be true, shouldn't it? Well, that's true, right? So if I were looking at any of these operators up here, I could play around with any of them to see what's there. So if I said 1 greater than 10, for this matter, that would be false, right? The model changes. And that's true. That's there. It's not true. It's false, but it's correct there. If I said 100 greater than, I'd get something that would be true because that is there. And I could play around with any of these expressions. So that makes perfect sense to me as a programmer. Okay. But measures are something different. So if we click add measure, then we put a DAX formula. So we're going to do more measures throughout the series. For let's just understand what a measure is. So we can click add measure, and what does that do? So if we're in this table, let's go back to the table itself, dim product, and we said new measure. What happens now? So I get the same formula box, but I don't really know what to put in here. So let's go figure this out. So a measure, all right, so we're going to look at the related function, which I assume is going to create our measure. So let's see what that says. So this returns a related value from another table. So the source column is placed with parentheses to the right of the worst related. This contains the value that we want to get, and this requires a relationship between tables. So that makes sense. If it's a related table, how do you know which row to relate? And it performs a lookup based on a relationship and examines the values in the table we specify, ignoring filters. I assume we'll run into filters later. And I know there are filters in Power BI and in DAX, so we'll get those. So it works like VLOOKUP. I've never used VLOOKUP, so I don't know what that actually means. So related can be used in calculated column expression, which is there, but let's do related here. So relationships, we want to see what's relationshiped here. We're going to manage relationships in this case. Now that in Power BI Desktop, this third item, the model shows me some of the relationships that exist out there. Doesn't it? There it is. And so in this case, I see relationships. Which one was Bill asking us? So dim product and product subcategory key. So dim product is related somewhere. Product key here. Or is it? That's not what we wanted. Let's come back up here and say selected related. Oh, we didn't select related tables. That was part of the problem. So in here, we did the get data. It didn't select related tables because I was going a little too fast. So if we go back here, let's see if we can fix this live, because clearly I messed something up. So DW, and so we had account currency, customer, date, geography, product, sales region, sales territory, fact, sales. Does that seem like the correct number of tables? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 11, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And the one I missed was promotion. So now if I said select related tables, it selects other ones in here, including that product subcategory. So let's say load. Now I assume it's not going to reload the ones we did before, but let's just see. No, it added them again. Interesting. So now I've in some sense loaded more data than I wanted to, because I have all these two tables as well. So once this is done, let's actually see how easy it is to clear out some of these tables, and then we'll see if the related tables actually still exist in there once we've done this. So it pays not to skim through things as you're learning. I don't do that too often, but it does happen to me. And certainly I think trying to go a little bit quicker in this first level, I let that get away from me slightly, even though I did kind of go through this first level just to make sure it was there. So let's delete this one. So I can delete dim account 2 because I don't want these two tables. And then we'll do a couple of these restaurants, a dim currency, let's delete. Let's check. I wonder if there's a chance to multi-select these. So if I were to go here, let's see here and here. Nope, it's single select. So I can delete each one. It's probably not worth worrying about here in the short term, even though it's going to make my model more complex. But let's look at the relationships again and see. So this case, I've got dim product, and I actually should have somewhere over here product subcategory. Well, if I were to do, what is this? I don't have an easy way to see which ones are there. Oh no, here maybe? What happens if I do this? It doesn't tell me. Product subcategory key, but it doesn't relate to where. Oh, there it is. So it's this one here. So we take that dotted one and scroll up and over. We'll find dim product subcategory key. So that's the relationship there that we actually found. So with related, okay, they're just looking at the relationship that's actually there. So this is a foreign key relationship essentially. So now, so add column. So we're not going to do a measure off the top bat. We're going to do add column again. So let's try that. So let's come over here to dim product. Is that the correct one? Yes. And we're going to say new column. And then what we're going to do for the new column is related D. So related D. Not get anything. Dim. That's not what I want. So for Power BI, I think I can't do the IntelliSense with a table because it doesn't seem to want to do it. But if I do product sub category, maybe it's too much stuff coming in IntelliSense. Category alternate key. See if that errors out. And maybe I'm going too fast here, but we'll see what happens. Subcategory bracket, I believe, was the thing we saw. So let's do bracket here, and let's say, is that right? So the table will be product subcategory, and then the product subcategory alternate keys there. So it doesn't find that. And I'm assuming that I've just typed something incorrect here. Oh, it's dim product subcategory, so it was a dim. Let's try that now. Oh, did I put braces in there or brackets? So something is weird here. So with related equals related here. Dim. So my IntelliSense doesn't appear to be working. I wonder if because I have too many of these items already. Let's cancel out of this. Let me delete these items and make sure they don't have some duplicate keys somewhere here that are causing issues. Actually, at this rate, maybe it's easier to start over. I hate to start over. I want to fix what I broke here. So dim product 2. Maybe that was the one that's causing problems here. And dim promotion. We'll fix that in a moment. So dim promotion. Can I make this fields any bigger? Because it is actually hard to read if I had these long table names. That's a slightly disconcerting item here that I don't see the entire name here. I can't make this bigger, I don't think. Or can I? No, I can. There we go. So let's delete this. Sales territory 2. Maybe this gives me a better sort of model to work with then once I've removed 2. And then I think I should just have one left to actually remove here. Fact internet sales. We'll delete that. Sales 2, and there we go. And then let's go back to dim product. Column 2. Now you see it's kept this definition even though things actually weren't working. So related column name. So if I said dim sub, wonder why I don't get IntelliSense here. So expects a fully qualified item as a reference here. So product sub. This is interesting that it doesn't actually load. Let's try do one thing. Let's save this Power BI file and then reload it, because I wonder if there's some sort of issue there. So I'm going to save as, and we're going to say Stairway Live Power one for the first level, and I'm going to stick this actually in the root of my documents folder. So that'll be there. Let's close Power BI and let's restart Power BI desktop. Then we'll open that up and see if we actually get IntelliSense working. That was interesting to me because, like I said, I've not worked extensively with Power BI desktop, and some things seem to have worked well and some things haven't. So it's still there. We don't have this. I wonder if I can drag that over there. Is there a chance of that working? Dim product subcategory. Again, let's make this bigger. Alternate key. So where are we? Column 2. That doesn't add. Where's that first column we added? Let's try that something here. So here, if I said related, so related dim product have I turned off some sort of IntelliSense here? Boy, this is kind of fascinating. I'm stuck here in that this doesn't work. There is a still relationship here, right? Let's see. So this should go over there. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to save this and I'm going to restart this thing because I wonder what I've done actually. And rather than futz around too long on this, as I'd like to get through this level, let's restart Power BI and see if we can figure out what's actually working. So it's initializing a model there. This actually gives me a new item. So let's say get data, a new Power BI file. We'll say SQL Server. We'll connect. And we'll say Plato 17 again. And it was 11 tables. So let's try this again. So dim account, currency, customer, date, geography, product, promotion, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, select related tables, load. Now, while that loads, I'm going to close this Power BI desktop. One thing I find interesting is that everything is, it's a multimodal dialogue interface. So you have multiple copies of Power BI for different reports, or Power BI desktop rather, which sometimes gets confusing, but we'll see. We're reloading this in. So see we've got, this huge number of rows being loaded in here. The relationships are set up and it's there. So we'll come over to the model. We'll do product. We'll say new column. And now if we see the related, send it there. So if I were to say D, it comes in subcategory alternate key. Very strange. Let's close this off and let's say it's there. We're going to give it a name. Subcat alt key. So let's change this to subcat alt key. Let's click this and we'll have that new column. And I don't see anything here, but if I scroll down, I do start to see things down in some places. So it's not everywhere that it's there. We did add, well, they didn't give that a name, so maybe that won't matter, the other one. So let's add a couple more columns to reinforce our understanding. So we'll click add column and it'll put one to the right, so new column. We're still in dim product. So let's say new column. And we're going to get a name here. And so we're going to say subcat name is equal to related. And what are we going to grab? English. So if I said English subcategory name, it pops up there. And let's close our parentheses out. And you'll notice that Power BI does detect my parentheses matching here. So once that's done, I should have a new column here that says subcat key, or subcat name, sorry, over here on the right. And you'll notice it's got this column thing. And again, if I scroll down, I actually see some of the data listed down there. So that's good. Now we can insert another column to combine these, which is, this is kind of crazy, but in the data warehouse analysis world, sometimes we do, in essence, somewhat denormalizing what we're doing and actually push more data out there. So we'll say new column. In this case, I'm going to use those two columns that I created. So I'm assuming that Power BI would do a better job of efficiently storing this. So it's not storing 3 copies necessarily. It's calculating some of this stuff real time. But well, I guess we'll see what happens there. So once this is created, over here in the end, now I've got dashes where there's nothing there. So that's probably a formula I'd want to fix with some sort of qualification that if the values, if one of the values or both of the values were null or non-existent blank, we would get rid of the dash. But you can see here I've combined 30 plus fenders to be 30 dash fenders, which makes perfect sense. And that looks like what we see here. So we could save that, and that's it. That's the end of Stairway 1. So I'm going to save this as that same file name, actually. I'm going to overwrite that. That'll be our first Power BI file that contains data from SQL Server, where we've added a couple of columns to this particular model or this table. So that's kind of interesting. So we got an introduction here to Power BI Desktop and an introduction to DAX in the light way. We learned about some of these arithmetic operators here that we can use in the creation of new columns. We did the related function. So rather than just saying this column is equal to a column here, I have to use related to get that back. So that's interesting. We did that. So that's there. So I think that's it for today. That's all I'm going to cover. So next time we'll look at level 2, at least, maybe level 3. We'll see how long this takes to go through once we set it up and do some experimentation for count rows and filter. And let's just see if there's anything in here that looks like there's setup we need. So there's preparation. PowerPivot should be there. They're importing these. So we'll check. I mean, I'm not sure about currency. Most of these are already imported though, so we wouldn't need to re-import those again next time. We'll look at count rows and filters and see what happens there. So the homework, again, for this class for next time, if you haven't already done it, is we want to install SQL Server, reverse this order, SQL Server, whatever. I'm using 2017. I think any version probably works, but pick the version you need. We'll do analysis services, which I will do myself and add that onto my installation of SQL Server. And then we're going to install the AdventureWorks data warehouse file. Now, there is an analysis service sample database. I haven't installed that. I believe this link is actually broken right now, but we'll get that working at some point, or maybe we'll cover it at the time that we need it. So with that, let's call it a day. So hopefully that you found this to be somewhat interesting and that we had some fun here. Again, I was the only person. We've got 3 pieces of homework that we need to do to make sure we've got done. And with that, we've started learning some DAX. I know a little bit more, only really about this, what I already knew in terms of Power BI and DAX, but hopefully we'll grow this and improve on it for the next version. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.